Okay, we're here at the American Legion in Russellville, Arkansas, the Riggs Hamilton Post 20, and we're here today doing a veterans interview with Susan Noland, and she's our post adjutant. And we're going to do a little interview and find out a little bit about her military career and her personal life. Today is January the 22nd, 2025, and we're here with Susan. I'm Kevin McLeod, the interviewer, and Alan is one of our videographers from the Upward Bound program at Arkansas Tech. So we'll get started real quick. Susan, why don't you give us your name and where you were born and grew up?
Okay, my name is Susan Noland, and I was born Susan Martin. I was born here in Dardanelle, Arkansas, but I was raised here in Russellville, so Russellville is home.
And you were born here and raised here?
Yes.
Okay. So what year did you graduate high school?
Graduated high school in 1990. Yeah.
Here in Russellville?
Here in Russellville High School, yes.
Okay, and so how did you become to get into the military?
Well, honestly, while I was in junior high and high school, I went to dive school and did some other stuff. I really wanted to go in the Navy. I wanted to be a marine biologist for the Navy, but that was not in the plans. And my dad is actually retired Navy, but he supported me 110% to join the Army. So there's always been a little rivalry when it comes to football games and all of that when I was growing up, because I would root for the team he was against, you know.
Okay.
So, and then it got more so after I went in the Army, but he was right there with me. I mean, he told me what I was going to be getting into. He told me what to expect. He, went through and did PT. He would run with me and all of this stuff like that to get prepared and get ready for it. And he, even though he was Navy, he championed and was like, you can do it. If you want to do it, go for it.
So were you very athletic in high school, or were you a nerd, or?
I was more of the band kid. I was the band geek. So I was not overly athletic at all.
Okay.
But I was good at marching. Let's just say I could walk faster than I could run when I joined the military.
Okay, so tell me about, you enlisted right after high school, or
No.
was there a little time there?
There was some time in between. I was actually going to college, and I was still working at marine biology. That was really what I was wanting to do, because I wanted to do sonar work and work with all of that. That was still the game plan. And married my high school sweetheart. That was not a good combination.
Okay.
And got divorced.
A lot of us did that.
Yeah. Got divorced. And at that point, I'm like, it's not working out. I need a break from college. I need a break from everything. And I still went to go join the Navy. And it just wasn't playing out at that point. And I'm like, okay, Army and Navy are right here next door to each other. Went to the other side of the hallway. And the Army guy was like, yeah, we got it. We can do it.
Okay.
And that's where it went. And I went home and I was upset that the Navy recruiter wasn't very nice. And told my dad what the Army recruiter said. And he just looked at me and he was like, do what? So he went back with me the next day. And we talked to both recruiters. And we went home again and we were talking. And my mom was very upset. I can't believe you're going to do this.
Was it because you were a girl, or was it just that she didn't want her baby leaving?
Both.
Okay.
It's a tough world. It's a man's world. I can't believe you're going to do that. And my retort to that was, Mom, I've grown up on the farm. I've done man's work my whole life. Why is this going to be any different? I can do the work. I can do the job. Besides, I'm going to get to learn something different, and I'll get to go travel. Why will this be any different? And it was my stepdad, but he said, she can do this.
So you won her over?
I did, but she was still upset. My baby.
Because she's mama.
She's
right.
Mom, but she was still upset. You can go anywhere in the world, and I'm not going to be there if you need me.
Right, okay.
That was her big thing. I'm not going to be there if you need me.
So what, you said 1990 is when you?
1990.
So where did you go to basic training?
Basic training was Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and then I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia for AIT.
How was basic training?
Everybody kept telling us that we were at Camp Hollywood. But we were still segregated. Boys were in one area, girls were in another. I mean, it was still.
Would you say it's challenging or cakewalk or?
Some of it wasn't that bad, but that's because I grew up on the farm. There was a lot of stuff that I already knew how to, squat and bend and do stuff like that. I already knew how to use ropes and pulleys because to me, a lot of it was similar to farm work, and you had to do teamwork to do some of the stuff. Other girls had no clue what any of that was. They'd never seen a rope before. They didn't know what a pulley was. They didn't know how to do teamwork because they'd always been independent and on their own. And then you had other girls that were construction workers that knew exactly what they were doing. And then you had girls who'd been going to beauty school and then got in trouble, and the judge told them, no, you're going in the Army. And going from beauty college to basic training was not a good combination for them because they come in with 3-inch nails and, oh yeah, brightly colored hair. I mean, not brightly colored hair, but tight braids, long hair, and we still had to have off the collar and off the ears. So it made a difference. The nails did not last long and the braids did not last long.
So after basic, you then went to Fort Gordon?
Fort Gordon, Georgia.
What was your MOS?
I was a 31 Charlie, so it's AM radio operator. We had the old rat rigs, but we also worked with the PRC 76s and 77s, which is the radios that they used in Vietnam. And we did not have to use them very often, but we were still trained on how to do it. A lot of people, the rat rigs was also what they used for the Marsgrams and the Mars stations, so you could send messages home. It would link up with the computer systems as things.
And this was all before internet.
Yes.
So
all before internet.
Right.
So you had to run your AM radio lines. You had to cut your own antenna wires and set all of that up, and you had to know your skip zones and everything. There was a lot of math work that you had to do, a lot of towers you had to climb because you had to set all of that up yourself, tear it down yourself. So.
How long of a course was it?
8 weeks.
How was it? Was it kind of challenging or?
The biggest issue that a lot of people had was the typing. You had to be able to type at a certain speed. And my typing class in high school was an old standard whole standard typewriter. We didn't have computers. So I was used to typing on a regular typewriter. The old type and then ching.
Right.
Whereas others, when they were in high school, they actually had keyboards. So when we went into the class, it was actually a computer keyboard that they had us doing the typing test on. And the first time I did it, I bombed just because the keyboard was so sensitive and I couldn't type on it. I wasn't used to it. And I went through and requested that I get an old typewriter, and the drill sergeants laughed at me. And I said, can I use what I'm going to be using in the field? And they were like, nobody can ever pass that and that. And I said, I would like the challenge, please. And they were laughing and they were taking bets on whether or not I would do it or not. But because I had used the old typewriters in high school, just a year before.
So you're used to pushing on the keys hard, banging it out.
And I passed just fine. I actually scored pretty high. We were required to score 60 words per minute on the teletype. And they were wanting 120 words a minute on the keyboard. So I got 90 words per minute on the teletype, and then my goal was to get the 120 words per minute on the keyboard after that. But because I could do the one, they were like, now we understand why you failed the computer. Because I was used to holding the keys down and mashing. So I had to learn that balance and transition between the two. That was my new goal. And I got pretty good at that.
And then after AIT, you went where?
I went to Camp Colburn, Korea.
Oh my goodness.
That was my first place.
No time home in between?
No.
So were you
homesick?
homesick?
I came home for 3 days. And that was just because there was a delay in the flight time. Otherwise, I would have went straight from AIT there. But they didn't have a flight that was going to Seoul, Korea in that time frame. So that was it. Otherwise, I just would have been sitting at the airport in St. Louis.
Any homesickness? Were you missing home or?
There was too much to do. There were a few times I got homesickness. There was one time I got a letter from my mom telling me that I was going to have a new little brother. I had a new little brother named Spike. And I completely freaked out. Completely freaked out because early my senior year in high school, my mom got pregnant through a tubal. And my whole senior year was a roller coaster of insanity just because I was a senior in high school, had my brother, and then he'd been kicked out of school. And then I had my sister in kindergarten, and then my mom was pregnant. So here I am, a senior with a little sister in kindergarten, and my mom's pregnant. And then here I am overseas, and I get a letter saying, I got a little brother named Spike. And I'm like, that can't happen twice. This just absolutely can't happen twice. Well, because the mail took so long to cross over and do everything else, it was about 3 weeks later, I got a package of pictures. And all the kids and the cousins had decided to play Barbie shop and barber shop, and they'd cut each other's hair off.
Oh.
So my little sister, you know,
She was playing a joke on you, sort of.
kind of, yes, but my baby sister that was the littlest, you know, that was just a little, yeah, she had gotten all of her hair cut off, so she was
Okay.
Spike. Because her little ringlets were now little nubs.
Now, you said you went where in Korea?
I was at Camp Cobra, Korea, which was...
That's in the southern part?
It is in the
Okay.
southern part. Seoul's in the middle. Camp Colburn was... If there wasn't traffic, it was about a 45-minute drive south of Seoul. If there was traffic, it took about an hour and a half.
So what was it like living in Korea?
Oh my gosh, it was a third world country. If it was a populated area, it was just like going into any other big city. You had the bad smells, you had the people, it was overpopulated. You had your homeless people that were different places and all of that. You had your high-end technology. I mean, they had technology there that we didn't have here, just like they still do over there. They've always got higher-end robotics and all of that. But if you were in an area that was off the beaten path, like we've always had indoor plumbing and toiletry type stuff, they had a rectangular hole cut in the ground and a little, plywood board beside it. And
Outhouse.
It wasn't even an outhouse because there was no roof and the boards were only like 2 foot tall. That was it, and anybody could use it. It's just the way it was.
I can imagine the smell.
Well, and then they collected all of that, and then they used it to fertilize.
The rice fields, or
Everything, all the gardens and all of that. So, yeah, it made morning PT a little interesting sometimes if they were out there just freshly fertilizing everything.
Oh,
It was
wow.
always, yes. It definitely woke you up in the mornings, so that was part of that. You learned where to eat and what not to eat. The first time you ate food off base that was native Korean food, you would get so sick just because of the way that they fertilized the food. But once you survived that, you could eat it in anything.
I like how she said survive that. That doesn't sound very...
No, you felt like you were dying.
So tell me about your first duty station, your first unit. What
Oh my.
were you the only female? Were there other females?
There was 4 females on base. In my platoon, I was the only female and I was the only white person to start with.
Oh
Now,
my
there
goodness.
was there was a male that was a white person, but he was shipping out as I was being transferred in. So he was there like 2 days and then he was out. So I was it. I was called the token cracker quite frequently. And I just laughed about it. And I'm like, wait till it gets a little brighter, I'll tan up for you. But I worked with a lot of Hispanics, a lot of African Americans. They were some of the best men to work with. There was plenty of jokes that were done. There was a lot of testing. A lot of testing that was done. First day out on the motor pool line, we were changing a lot of our equipment over from the old pickups to Humvees. And they were like, yep, you got to go do all that. And I'm like, some of the equipment's 2-man lift or 3-man lift. They're like, yep, you're a woman, you can do it, because you're the whoa man. And I went through and looked at all of it, and I'm like, okay. I just backed them up together and set up a system where I could use a dolly and move it from one truck to the other and get everything done. And I knew, they said that as long as everything was done by lunch, we'd have early day out. We just had to get everything transferred over and make sure it was all checked off. I did my truck first, moved it over, reinstalled, checked it all off, went through, moved the trucks back where they needed to be, went to the next one, backed them up together, set up all my other stuff, moved the equipment around, but I didn't check that one off. It was their truck. They needed to check their equipment. So I had everything done except for the checkoffs. Equipment's transferred, go do your checkoff, go do your checkoff. And they got kind of irritated, and I'm like, just told me to transfer equipment. So I'm sitting in the motor pool, and the first sergeant comes down, and he's, what are you sitting in here for? I said, equipment's transferred, and checkoff is complete. And he was like, all right, well, let's go see. And I was able to identify all the equipment, tell him how everything was installed, and then do the complete checkoff with him. And he was like, why are you done? I said, well, I did everybody else's equipment maneuver as well. And the motor pool sergeant was like, she actually did. And he was like, how? And I'm like, farm girl, work harder, not smarter. Why? Why would you work extra hard? And he goes, how did you move all that? And I said, I borrowed a dolly. Again, work harder, work smarter, not harder. So, and it was just, I did stuff like that all the time. I wasn't going to throw a fit or cause a ruckus or anything else. You just rolled with it. You did. You had to. Like they knew that I didn't like to climb up high, because one of the guys went through and he shook the pole while I was up changing the antenna length for one of our field objectives. And he saw that I got scared up there. But he shook the pole pretty hard, and I was in PT gear. I wasn't in the appropriate gear for the job because I had to do it right then. So after that, they sent me on every duty to go climb the poles and change out all of the equipment. They also knew that there was one of the other gentlemen that despised anything creepy crawling, and they would send us together. Well, I didn't mind creepy crawling. He didn't mind heights. So we made the deal. I would go through all of the culverts and do all of the dirty, mucky work as long as he climbed up all the towers and did all the tower work. Nobody knew that we had made the deal. They just thought they were sending the two scary, the two people that were scaredy cats to get all the work done. We got everything done and come back and would have plenty of time off because we worked together as a team and got everything done. It wasn't a big deal for us, but they thought they were getting something over on us.
Right.
We went and got everything done. So it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of interesting people. There was always somebody who wanted to get something over on somebody.
Right. So how long were you in Korea? A year?
I was actually over in Korea and Okinawa 16 months because while I was in Korea, one of the girls found out she was pregnant and went into labor early. And because I'm the oldest of 4, and out of the 4 women that were on base, I was the only one who'd been exposed to children and deliveries and anything like that. They sent me to Okinawa with her because that was the closest place that had a neonatal unit. So I got flown over there on a Black Hawk with her. And the only Army station in Okinawa was 1st Special Forces. So I got attached to them even though I was stuck working the Naval Hospital because she had a baby early. And then while I was staying at Torrey Station, the guys found out that I knew how to work AM radios and could work on them and the PRCs, the 76s and 77s. Yes, there was lots of jokes about the PRC 76s and 77s. And I just went with it. I knew they were going to come, so I just laughed about it and went on. But they were like, "So you really know how to work on them?" I'm like, "Yeah." So when I wasn't at the hospital, I was working on some of the equipment for the guys, and because the one was behind on some of his stuff, and it wasn't a big deal, but he was always having to go out and work. So I worked on stuff, did what I could, and it was fun. It was interesting. They were a completely different mindset of people. So it made it interesting. But then, oh, I forgot. When I was in Korea, I got to see Clinton. So they were there in Korea doing all of their, they were over there doing some stuff. And the boiler in the hotel they were staying in had an explosion. And they called in, and they changed hotels, and they had security detail. And I did the challenge and password, and the one guy didn't want to give me the password. He was just kind of ignored me. And I was doing it again, and the other guy gave me the password in response, and I was going to let him in, but the one didn't want to. And Clint came around the corner, and he was like, "Boy, you better answer. I know that accent. That's an Arkansas accent.
Oh, wow.
She'll shoot first and ask questions later." And and he was like, "Where are you from?" And I told him I was from Russellville, Arkansas. He said, "Well, at least I know somebody who knows how to shoot's taking care of my baby girl in here." You know.
That's
But,
cool.
yeah, it was interesting. So, but yeah, once they got everything straightened out in Okinawa, I went back to Korea and then was able to come back stateside. And I was supposed to go to Pentagon Communications and work at the White House. But because Clinton was still president, I ended up going to Fort Belvoir in Virginia. That was my
that's
final,
where you met.
That's where I met my husband. That's where I met
Who is
Bart.
also a Legion member.
Yes.
And so he's our Legion Writers president.
Director.
Director.
President, yes.
So tell me about getting out of the military. What was that like? You didn't re-enlist, I assume.
No, did not re-enlist. They wouldn't let me. I trashed my hip, so they said there was too much liability for that. So, and I understood that. Messing up the hip flexor, hip tendons, tearing all the quad muscles, that makes an issue. It's a safety issue. But no, it was difficult when I out-processed because I wasn't military anymore. Being active duty is one thing, and being married to another active duty member, but then when you process out and you ETS, and now you're a spouse, the other spouses treat you completely different. Like, they treat you one way while you're on active duty, and they're kind of rude and snotty, but when you ETS out and you're just the spouse, the women are brutal.
You're talking about the spouses of the
Other military
Okay.
members that are on base.
So they didn't treat you very kindly because
No, not at all. Because I was no longer protected as a military member. I was just a spouse, and I was the lowest of the low because I had been an active duty member before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And they had their own little pecking order, I guess you could say. Yeah.
I would have never thought that. Okay.
No, but it was pretty brutal as far as that went. And I was just like, this is not my kind of women.
So I'm assuming eventually Bart was discharged
Yeah, he got out, and we were looking at where would be a better place
to settle.
to settle in, because he's from Ohio and I'm from here, and it's who's got the better job opportunities, where would it be cheaper to live, you know, all of that stuff. And my grandma had fell and broke her leg, and then in that process we discovered that the plate that she had on her from an accident she had whenever my mom was a baby was rusted and causing some other issues and different things, and she was going to need some help with rehab. So plus it was easier to find a job down here, it was cheaper to live down here, there was just so many more benefits. We decided we would move down here and help with that. So That's how we ended up down here.
Oh,
And,
so when you came here, I know you're a school teacher,
yes,
so I'm assuming you went back to college,
yes,
and you probably used your VA benefits,
I did.
education,
Yes.
and so tell me about how you became a member of the American Legion.
Gosh. Well, our past president, Cole Hendricks, went through and harassed Bart nonstop. And Bart was like, okay, let's go. And which was kind of funny because he's a fireman and he's a EMT. And Bart used his VA, voc rehab for the VA to get his paramedic. So, but he's at the fire department, and because they always do stuff over at Tech, because that's where he's stationed at, is over by Tech. He always sell coal over there, and Bart's got his EAM degree, so he does stuff with the EAM and the Tech department and all of that. So he's always in and out and all around on campus, and he knows that Bart's a veteran, and why don't you come, just come on over for a meet, have dinner one night, come on. And so he's like, if I gotta go, you gotta go. And I'm like, fine. And we come over, and Mr. Eaton sees me, and he's like, hey, how are you? Because I went to school with Mr. Bill's girls.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I graduated with his daughter, Julie, from Russellville High School. And we were on the color guard together because we were both band kids back in the day. And full circle, told you it's all full circle. And so we had a couple of events out there, and Mr. Bill was like, why don't you help me out over here? And I was helping him do the money and take care of some other stuff and selling t-shirts. And from there, he went through and he was like, oh, so you can handle money. You know how to take care of paperwork and all of this. And he went through and he said, a couple of meetings later, he was like, I want to nominate Miss Noland over here to be the next adjutant because I want to retire. And
Here you are.
here I am.
So, do you think joining the Legion was a good thing for you?
It keeps me active. It helps keep me involved in the community.
Would you recommend the Legion to anybody else?
Yes.
So we're going to wrap this up for time's sakes, and we're really glad that we got to visit with Susan. And you can look for her on our YouTube channel at Riggs Hamilton American Legion Post 20. She'll be on there soon, and come by and visit us at Riggs Hamilton Post 20.